What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to Darkworld. Now this particular build is designed to be on a very tidy budget, so it does not include Triple Tactics Thrust, even though it's technically just got its 4th print in the Mega Tins, because the price of that card is still about £35 a copy. It doesn't include SP Little Knights. We've also made some additional changes to the extra deck, on top of not being able to have access to Appaloosa anymore. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. With all of that out of the way, I'm going to dive headfirst into profile and show you what we've got. So you start off with the standard lineup for Darkworld, in my opinion, of Triple Genta, Triple Snow, Triple Rainbow, followed up by Double Grepher, and then something that becomes a little bit more in the norm for my particular builds right now is the one Visago the Destroyer, and the reason for that is it technically acts as another copy of Grepher for your fusion plays, and it can also substitute itself out for the original Rainbow so that you can actually make colourless without needing to play the original Rainbow. So Visago does put in a lot of work, which is why I've kind of put it in this element here with the rest of the Dark Worlds. The other Dark World cards we are playing is the one Silver Warlord of the Dark World, followed up by the one Lucian. Now some people will choose to play gold, some people will also choose to play a second silver. That is entirely up to you. The reason that I play the Lucian in here is it does help you, if you want to, go down a rank 6 route where you can access stuff like Lars and High Wave King Caesar, but I also quite like it in here for the ability to get that additional monster to the board, should I need to, that can then help me move into my synchro plays off of the back of the Fabled Raven, which are cards that are going to be utilised and searched off of the back of the Fiendsmith Tract. So Tract is currently like £8 to £10 a copy right now, which is why I still feel that that is within its budget realms, because being able to utilise a card in the form of your Fiendsmith Sequence is actually massively important, because this is another way that you can recycle materials as well as getting you into colourless or get you into the Grepher Fusion, which sets you up either a negate or a board wipe. The last Dark World that we play is of course the one Ceruli. Again, I know a lot of people will choose to go down the pure hand rip route of this deck, and if you want to do that, that's of course where you kind of take out stuff like the Quackimiru Guardian. It's where you probably go for more Kens and Gens. It really is up to you. You have the flexibility to do as you wish. This is just the budget version that I like to show, just to kind of give you a bit of a different variety, and something that has worked out for me personally, because you don't want to focus on the deck only being able to do one thing. You want to have that ability of, okay, if I go first, I have an option of a hand rip, but I also have an option of setting up a board and also defending, and then going second, I have the ability to flood the board with loads of strong monsters in the Dark World sections, but I also have the ability of a colourless board wipe, as well as trying to push for an OTK, or fall back on a bit of a defensive board and balance in a hand rip as well, should I need to. Then moving on to the dangers, I've gone with triple Nessie, double Mothman, a single Jackalope, single Bigfoot, and a single Chupacabra. Again, this really all comes down to personal preference on the ratios of this. Some people will play 2 Nessie, one Mothman, one Jackalope, and then might not even play Bigfoot or Chupacabra. Some people might play Thunderbird. It really does come down to personal preference and what you're trying to achieve at the back of it. I'm literally only going to be using these as the discard fodder. Some of them I'll use as rank 4 fodder in the form of the Mothman and Chupacabra. Some you might want to be using as rank 8 fodder if you need to with your Bigfoot, but honestly and ultimately you are just using these as bodies on the board that can then be used for link fodder, or they can just stand their own ground, being the aggressor should you need it. The only one that I play that is kind of like a danger, but is a selected danger, and that is of course the Salamander Catalyzer. I just like the idea of being able to trigger any of my Dark Worlds should I want to, and then if you get a level 8 on the board, a level 4 on the board, it really gives you that balance, rather than having to rely on an opponent's dice roll, which is obviously the RNG factor of the deck. Catalyzer gives you the direct option to be able to get the outcome that you want. And then the normal summon that I play in all my Dark World decks right now is of course the Quackimiru Guardian. A lot of people don't actually like this, which again is completely up to them. It comes down to personal preference, but to me my normal summon in the main deck will be the Quackimiru Guardian, because it has that balance of being able to go first or second as a form of interruption. I normal summon this, my opponent will struggle when they attempt to droll me. Yes, of course droll might be something in the side deck, but it also gives me protection from something like Ash Blossom, which is a little bit more common, and it gives me protection from the Biru, which I also expect will be a little bit more common going forward. Going second, if I haven't won the dice roll, it still gives you that option to use it as your normal summon, as it doesn't really clash with anything else in the deck that you can't get out in another way. That also then says, okay, well, the first thing you activate is probably going to be met with the Quackimiru Guardian, or you need to deal with the Quackimiru Guardian first before you can start interacting with the rest of the cards that I have, if you are relying on monster effect negations. So it really comes down to personal preference. Like I said, you can sub this out, you can go lava golems, but I feel if you're going to go lava golems, you're probably going to be going for a more designed go second build. You can also go for the Kens and Gens if you want to, and again, I know a lot of people like that option. My issue with that is it gets stopped a little bit too easy, and then it runs headfirst into the hand traps that cause the deck issues already. So you do need to be able to play cards that can allow you to protect from those particular hand traps. The only thing that this deck can't protect against, but yet again, most decks can't protect against it, is of course the Dimension Shifter. But I feel that that's when you're going to side in alternative options to help you play around Dimension Shifter and protect from Dimension Shifter, because it's not as much of a common main deck card as something like possibly Droll, but definitely Ash Blossoms and Nibiru's that you could arguably think will be in the upcoming format. The last two monsters we play are two Fabled cards. We've got the one Fabled Laureate and we've got the one Fabled Raven. Now the reason we're playing these is because we are playing 3 Fiendsmith Tract. So the idea is that Fiendsmith Tract just works out beautifully in this deck because you add a Light Fiend from the deck to the hand and then discard a card as effect. So it lets you trigger any of your Dark World discard effects. But then it can also search you out a Laurie, which becomes a free summon if you want to play the Requiem. We're personally not doing that. You'd just be using Laurie as the free body on the board that can help you get into sequence. Alternatively, you can go Tract into the Fabled Raven if you haven't opened up the Cocky Mirror Guardian, and you can use Fabled Raven as your normal summon, because then what you'll be doing is you'd go Tract, search out Raven, resolve the Tract by discarding a Dark World card. That will then allow you to trigger said Dark World card to, ideally in the form of something like Snow, set you up a Genta, and then you're basically working your way through it until you normal summon down the Raven, which can then discard more cards from the hand to trigger their effects of the Dark Worlds as it's discarded as an effect, to then allow you to move your board further forward, trigger off your Dark World effects, bring back your level 8. You can then start working into Synchro level 6s, Synchro level 8s, and possibly Synchro level 10s if you want to play Chaos Angel or the Chaos Engine, but I'm not relying on this to be my main normal summon. That's where the Cocky Mirror Guardian comes in, but it is just a very nice option that this gives you. And then worst case scenario, if you're not going to go down the Synchro route, you use this as your Light Fiend to get you into your sequence, and then sequence, like I've said, leads you into your Grepher or your Colourless. Then the last cards that we are playing is 2 Gate of the Dark World. Again, personal preference on this one. I have never had an issue playing 2 of this. I've had more issues playing 3 of it, which is why I am personally always rocking 2. Then of course we've got the 1 Accession, we've got the 1 Archives, and then the cards that we are doubling up, which you would technically put in 1 Thrust in each position of this, is 2 Dark Corridor, now that this has been reprinted in the Megatins, and 2 Triple Tactic Talents. Now of course the Talents is probably the more expensive of the spell cards, so if you want to, you could cut it down to 1, but the idea is when you're taking out Thrust, you want to balance up the copies that you are going to ideally be searching, which is why I'm playing 2 Corridor in this build and 2 Talents. You do have other options if you don't want to play the cards like Cocky Mirror Guardian and you want to put in some more normal spell cards. You've got stuff like Drag Down to the Grave, you've got Dark World Dealings, but again that really comes down to the environment you're taking it to, and if you are fearful that you either Dark World Dealings them or Drag Down to the Grave, and then they could possibly draw into another card that will cause you an issue. It really is up to you. There's, like I said, there is no direct way of being able to stop a Dimension Shifter in this deck, sadly, like unless you're going to be playing Gamma and then always opening it up or always opening up Called By, it can get a little bit tricky. The only other way you could do it is if you open up something like a Crossout Designator and then you're going to be main decking like a Shifter, but then you're clogging your deck down with 4 cards that aren't always going to be necessary. Moving on to the extra deck, so of course for our Dark World fusions, we do play the 1 Colourless and the 1 Grepher Dragon Overlord. You could play 2 Overlords if you want to, it really is entirely up to you. We then play 2 Synchros. Now these can be cut out for anything you want to, but I just like the idea that I can access Synchros in this deck. So I went with the 2 Fabled ones that kind of fit the route quite nicely. So you've got the Groza, the Tyrant of Thunder, technically isn't a Fabled one, but the Fiend monsters. And then of course you've got the Fabled Andraith. Now I mentioned this in my previous profile and showed it off in the previous profile, but this requires a Fabled Tuner and then 1 non-tuner monster. If it's special summoned, your opponent can discard 1 card to negate this effect, otherwise you draw 2 cards and then discard 1 as an effect. If a monster or monsters is sent from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, etc. in the damage step, you get to target one of those monsters and special summon it to your field, but you negate its effects. So if they want to stop this, they can then make sure they need to discard a spell, and then straight away when your opponent is discarding a spell, more times than not, you're ripping out a card that is already going to be effect for them. So you're either going to get the draw that is the benefit of the Ken and Gen, or of course you're going to get the discard from your opponent's hand, which just makes your hand rip capabilities a lot more easier. We only play 2 XYZ, so we play the 1 Abyss Dweller. I just think this is a great rank 4 that can really hurt the Yubel matchup, because being able to turn off their Yubel float effects and then also being able to turn off their Grave Square and everything else can be massively damaging, and not a lot of people are expecting this in this format, so when you do drop it on your opponent, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's still a card. The other one we still play is the Daguerres number 60. This is obviously gives you the ability to draw as well as discard via effects, so again triggering off your Dark Worlds to gain you more advantage. Then we move on to the extra deck. So, not the extra deck, the Link monsters of the extra deck. We are playing Fiendsmith Sequence. Obviously, the idea is this just needs a light Fiend monster, which is very easily accessible, just in generic routes if you wanted to go down your Moon of the Closed Heavens. But it also has the option of being able to use the Fabled monsters, and then that gives you the ability to synchro, or even, this gives you the ability to fusion summon, get there eventually, into your Grepher Dragon or your colourless. You've got a go first option and you've got a go second option. You can make the fusion element of the deck a little bit more prominent if you want to, but honestly, I'm quite happy with the 1s and 1s. For the other Link 2s, of course, we've got the Moon of the Closed Heavens, we've got the Muttrucker from the Underworld. Fiend locking yourself is not the end of the world in this particular deck because the majority of cards you are playing are going to be Fiends, especially as you're moving towards the late end of your turn. And then being able to use Muckraker to bring back a card from the graveyard can really, really help you. And one of the things that I love doing with this card now, and that I've put it back into the deck, is the Zelantis lock. So for those of you unfamiliar with how this works, you would make Muckraker, but then you'd also be able to make Zelantis, and you'd ideally make Zelantis by turning something like your Skulldread into Zelantis. So once you've got the Zelantis on the board, whether it be down here or whether you make Muckraker afterwards and put it that way there, the idea would be is that you trigger the Muckraker's effect, discarding a card, bringing back a Fiend monster. That then locks you, as the turn player and the player that controls Muckraker, into only being allowed to special summon Fiends. World Sea Dragon Zelantis, when you use this effect to banish the entire board and then bring it back, it is you, the player that is locked into Fiends, that is bringing those cards back. So if your opponent does not have any Fiends, you can't bring any of their cards you banish back to the board. A lot of people forget about this interaction, a lot of people don't even know this interaction, so it can be massively damaging to clear the board off and then be able to bring them back with nada. What you would then get back is you get Muckraker back, you also get the Fiend that you revive from the graveyard back, and then if you have ways of being able to return said Fiends to the hand because you're able to bring back Grepher and Rainbow, and then continue to make some darkworld plays, you'll be able to extend your board to push for that OTK. The last cards that we are playing is, off of the back of the Moon of the Closed Heavens, we do have access to the Underworld Goddess. We also have IP that can help you get into said Underworld Goddess. We then use the Akashic Magician to help you bounce a danger back to the hand, or of course you can bounce a Ceruli from your opponent's board back to your hand, and then you would bounce a danger that it points to back to your hand. So it just gives you more resource to then utilise Ceruli again. And then the final card we are playing is Nightmare Unicorn. This is obviously a SP Little Knight substitute that comes off of the back of IP Masquerena. And if you wanted to, you could go down, like I said, to go down something like a DDD High Wave King Caesar, an Evil Saw Lars. You can also go down in a Yama route that can also give you access to more rank 4s and Rage, but ideally to utilise Rage to its max potential, you're basically swapping out IP and you'd be going for something like an SP. So that's kind of where you would go, okay, well, Rage is there, SP's there, that's a bit of an upgrade I can do to the deck. Not that Rage is that expensive or Yama is that expensive right now, it really is just the SP Little Knight that is going to cost you a mini arm and a leg because the tins didn't help its reprint value that much. And that is pretty much it for the build. Like I said, I tried to keep this on a very tidy budget. The only ways that you really upgrade this, which is where all the money comes into it, is when you start putting in free Fiendsmith Engravers. That's when you start putting in SP Little Knights, Triple Tactics Frost, and that's when the deck goes up another level. But straight away, just by adding in 2 Frost, an SP Little Knight, and then 3 Engravers, you're just adding £300 to a deck like this, which technically can still play relatively well even without it. So that's it for the entire profile. Like I said before, any questions at all, by all means put them in the comments down below and I will be more than happy to answer them as always. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.